The invasion begins. The Xantine Empire sent their most powerful invasion fleet in history to overwhelm Earth, certain it would be a quick and easy conquest over the primitive humans. They would soon realize their fatal miscalculation. As retired Navy SEAL Kyle Richardson gazed up at the night sky during a wilderness hike, he spotted strange lights moving in tight formation, too precise to be satellites or human aircraft. His blood turned to ice as the horrifying realization hit him. This was it. First contact. An alien invasion of Earth had finally come. Frantic alerts blared through the NASA Deep Space Monitoring Facility. Wide-eyed analysts gawked at the colossal armada of advanced alien warships swarming into the solar system on a direct trajectory for Earth. Nothing in human history came close to this sheer scale and technological superiority. Panicked world leaders convened crisis meetings as the apocalyptic news rolled in. The extraterrestrial fleet vastly outclassed anything Earth's militaries could even dream of fielding. They were outgunned, outmatched, and out of time. The survival of the entire human species teetered on a razor's edge. Xantine warships, miles-long monstrosities bristling with devastating weaponry, slid into Earth's orbit and took up strike positions. Chilling transmission beamed down on all frequencies, the aliens' perfect English sending a chill down the spines of all who heard. People of Earth, we are the Xantine Empire. You are now under our dominion. Lay down your weapons and surrender immediately or face annihilation. Kyle raced back to civilization, even as the first alien landing ships descended like meteors through the atmosphere. On the command ship Hydrus, the ruthless warlord personally overseeing the invasion allowed himself a thin smile. Another primitive world to be crushed under his boot. Sleek alien fighters burst from launch bays, spreading out to commence the attack. Searing plasma bolts rained down on cities, igniting skyscrapers, and sending civilians fleeing in terror. The world's military scrambled jets and launched missiles in a desperate defense. But the Xantine energy shields and superior tech shredded them effortlessly. This would be a slaughter, not a war. Kyle reached his remote cabin and flung open a concealed vault. Inside were experimental weapons and classified tech he had liberated from Black Ops missions over the years. For a battle against alien conquerors, he would need every advantage he could get. This would be the most important mission of his life, with the highest stakes imaginable. He armored up and prepared for war. As smoke billowed over falling cities across the globe and the Xantine forces pressed their attack, Kyle jumped in his jeep to race towards the nearest military base. He couldn't fight this threat alone. Only one group of humans was crazy enough and skilled enough to take the battle to these alien bastards, his old Special Forces brothers in arms. Tires screeched as Kyle sped towards his rendezvous, ready to rally Earth's most elite killers and turn the tables on the arrogant invaders. The Xantine wanted Earth, but they were going to have to go through Kyle Richardson and his ex-military commandos first. Humanity's battle for survival had begun, and failure was not an option. Rallying the troops, Kyle sped down the highway, weaving through abandoned vehicles and debris. The once familiar American landscape was now a war-torn hellscape pockmarked by alien weaponry. But he pushed on, determined to find his old team. One by one, he tracked them down, hardened warriors who'd seen combat all over the globe. Men he trusted with his life countless times. They greeted each other with grim nods and fierce hugs, brothers reunited for the fight of their lives. 12 of the finest soldiers to ever wear the uniform gathered in a secret bunker buried deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. Kyle looked around at the assembled group. "I'm not going to lie to you," he said. "This is going to be the hardest mission we've ever faced. But you're the only ones I'd want by my side for this." They got to work, poring over intercepted alien transmissions and analyzing Xantine movement patterns. Weaknesses in the high-tech force fields and advanced armor began to emerge. Their shields flicker for a split second when shifting frequencies. Kyle's second-in-command, a grizzled Marine named Tex, pointed out. A coordinated strike at that exact moment might punch through. Kyle grinned. He was already reaching out to his network of Black Ops contacts, cashing in every favor to secure cutting-edge human weapons that just might give them a fighting chance. In the nation's capital, Hydrus watched as his troops seized control of the White House and Capitol, rounding up the president and top officials. The warlord sneered as the humans were dragged before him, broadcasting an ultimatum across the planet. Submit to Xantine rule, or your leaders will be the first to die. You have 24 hours to comply. Kyle knew they couldn't let that happen. When the deadline drew near, he led his team in a lightning raid on the aliens' main landing site outside D.C. Bullets and plasma bolts flew as the commandos ambushed the Xantine perimeter. Kyle lined up a shot with a prototype railgun and fired, the hypersonic round smashing through an alien dropship shields and puncturing its hull. The craft exploded in a fireball. More human weapons tore into the aliens as Kyle's team pressed the attack. Plasma cannons ruptured, force fields overloaded, and Xantine soldiers fell. For the first time, the invaders experienced real casualties on Earth's soil. News of the successful counterattack electrified the globe. In occupied cities across the world, ragtag bands of human freedom fighters rose up, launching hit-and-run strikes against the Xantine garrisons. What was once a one-sided slaughter began to turn into a real war. The resistance grows. Hydrus's reprisal was swift and brutal. Incensed by the human defiance, he ordered an orbital bombardment to make an example of the resistance. Targeted population centers became infernos as alien warships rained down plasma hellfire from above. Tokyo, Mumbai, all reduced to irradiated craters. Millions died in seconds, and yet, in the face of even this unimaginable devastation, humanity fought on. Kyle led his commandos in escalating guerrilla raids, bleeding the Xantine with every attack. They sabotaged supply lines, ambushed patrols, and overran outposts, inspiring more to join the cause with every victory. The Xantine answered in kind, deploying cold, unfeeling hunter-killer drones to stalk the human resistance. Kyle grimaced as the mechanical monstrosities descended on his team during a mission. They managed to escape the ambush, but at a cost. 3 of his brothers fell to the ruthless machines, buying time for the others with their lives. That night, the survivors held a private memorial, vowing to make the aliens pay 100-fold for every human death. Hidden in their bunker, they intercepted chatter about Hydrus's next move, a final, crushing assault with reinforcements from his main invasion fleet, one that Earth had no hope of repelling. Kyle clenched his jaw. If those ships made it to Earth, it was all over, the resistance, humanity, everything. He studied the tactical displays and made his decision. They had to stop those reinforcements, and he had a plan to do it, no matter the consequences. The daring plan. Kyle gathered his team in the bunker's war room. "We've got one shot at this," he said. "We take out Hydrus's command ship, we might just save Earth." The commandos leaned in as Kyle outlined his audacious plan. Infiltrate the alien dreadnought in orbit, sabotage its communications, and capture or kill the Xantine warlord himself. "It's a suicide mission," Tex said, voicing what they all thought. Kyle nodded grimly. "Probably, but it's our only chance." They geared up and headed to a hidden military facility deep in the mountains. There, they found their ticket to space, an experimental stealth shuttle, its sleek black hull designed to evade detection. As Kyle's team boarded, a technician briefed them on the miniaturized nukes stowed in the cargo hold. "One of these babies will turn that alien ship into stardust." The shuttle rocketed into the night sky. Kyle watched the curvature of Earth appear through the view screen as they climbed to orbit. The massive Xantine dreadnought loomed ahead, dwarfing their tiny craft. "Cloaking engaged," the pilot announced. "No sign they've spotted us." They docked undetected and slipped aboard, their captured Xantine armor concealing their human forms. Kyle split the team, sending half to disable communications while he led the rest towards the bridge. As they neared their target, plasma bolts suddenly sizzled past Kyle's head. "Ambush!" he yelled, diving for cover. The narrow corridor erupted in chaos as Hydras's elite guards opened fire. Kyle's team responded with precise bursts from their human weapons, downing several aliens. They fought their way forward inch by inch. A bolt caught one commando in the chest, dropping him. Kyle grabbed his fallen brother's gun and dual-wielded, cutting down Xantine soldiers with ruthless efficiency. Finally, they breached the bridge. Kyle came face to face with Hydras, the alien warlord's eyes burning with hatred. "You dared challenge me, human." Hydras snarled, activating an energy blade. Kyle charged, dodging the crackling weapon as it sliced through the air. He landed a punch to Hydras's midsection, but the alien's armor absorbed the blow. Hydras struck back, his augmented strength sending Kyle flying. Kyle slammed into a control panel, pain exploding through his body. He forced himself up, spitting blood. The two warriors clashed again and again. Kyle's training and tenacity allowed him to match the alien's enhanced abilities, but Hydras's relentless assault took its toll. Kyle's vision blurred as exhaustion set in. With a final surge of desperate strength, Kyle feinted left, and then struck, driving his combat knife deep into a weak point in Hydras's armor. The alien warlord howled in pain and fury. Kyle pressed his advantage, raining blows until Hydras collapsed. He placed his boot on the alien's chest and aimed his weapon. "Order your fleet to stand down. Now." Turning the tide. Meanwhile, Kyle's other team finished planting the nuke in the communications nexus. They radioed confirmation just as alarms began blaring throughout the ship. Hydras laughed weakly. "Fools. I've activated the self-destruct. You'll never escape." Kyle's team scrambled back to their shuttle, half carrying their wounded. The dreadnought shuddered around them as systems overloaded. They undocked with seconds to spare. As they rocketed away, the nuke and self-destruct sequence detonated simultaneously. The massive alien ship disappeared in a blinding explosion that lit up Earth's sky. Cheers erupted from resistance cells worldwide as they watched the Xantine command ship destroyed. Without leadership or orbital support, the alien army fell into disarray. Human fighters seized the initiative, overrunning Xantine positions across the globe. The remaining alien ships fled Earth orbit, jumping to light speed in a desperate retreat. Humanity had won an impossible victory. In the aftermath, Kyle stood atop a hill overlooking a cheering crowd. But he felt no elation, only grim certainty that this was just the beginning. The Xantine Empire would return, seeking vengeance. Next time, Earth would be ready. Kyle vowed to prepare humanity for the coming storm. The real war was just starting. The sun had barely risen over the Pacific horizon when Kyle Richardson strode into the command center of their hidden island base. His eyes were sunken from lack of sleep, but burned with fierce commitment. "Status report," he barked, scanning the holographic displays. His second-in-command, a former Navy SEAL named Vance, stepped forward. Long-range sensors just picked up a massive buildup of Xantine ships near Proxima Centauri. "Looks like they're gearing up for round 2. Kyle nodded grimly. He'd known this day would come. "Time to put our plan into action. Sound the alert. I want every recruit assembled in the main hangar in 1 hour." Sirens blared throughout the sprawling underground complex. Scientists scrambled to secure delicate equipment, while combat-ready troops donned their newly developed powered armor suits. In the cavernous hangar bay, hundreds of Earth's finest stood at attention. Kyle paced before them, his voice echoing off the metal walls. "For months, we've trained harder than any force in human history. We've combined the best of our technology with what we've learned from the Xantine. Now it's time to put it all to the test." He gestured to the rows of sleek hybrid fighters behind him. "These birds represent humanity's best shot at survival. Each one of you was chosen because you are the best of the best. It's up to us to take the fight to the enemy." The counteroffensive. Over the next weeks, the base was a flurry of activity. Engineers worked round the clock, fine-tuning the hybrid craft. Pilots ran endless simulations, pushing the limits of the alien-human tech. When the recon probes detected the Xantine fleet mobilizing, Kyle knew it was time to strike. He led a squadron of hybrid fighters on a daring raid deep into enemy territory. Their target, a massive shipyard churning out warships for the invasion. Remember, hit fast and hard. We only get one shot at this. Kyle's voice crackled over the comms as they approached. The hybrid fighters streaked in, their unique energy signatures confusing Xantine sensors. Plasma torpedoes found their marks with devastating precision. Fuel depots erupted in massive fireballs. Assembly lines crumbled. As they pulled out, Kyle allowed himself a small smile. They'd bloodied the Xantine's nose and bought Earth precious time. But the reprieve was short-lived. Within days, the full might of the alien armada entered the solar system. Ship after massive ship dropped out of FTL, their hulls gleaming menacingly in the starlight. On the bridge of his flagship, Admiral Kark sneered at the blue-green orb of Earth. Deploy the fleet. Surround the planet. No escape this time. Kyle watched grimly as the Xantine encircled Earth. He turned to his staff. Initiate Protocol Omega. Get everyone to the shelters. Across the globe, sirens wailed as civilians were herded into fortified bunkers deep underground. The cities emptied, leaving eerie ghost towns in their wake. Kark's voice boomed across all frequencies. Surrender now, humans, or watch your world burn. In response, swarms of hybrid fighters erupted from hidden bases. They darted between the massive alien ships, striking with impossible agility. Xantine gunners opened fire, filling space with sizzling bolts of energy. But the human craft were too quick, too unpredictable. For every fighter lost, a Xantine ship took crippling damage. Kark snarled in frustration as reports of mounting casualties poured in. Enough of this. Commence planetary bombardment. Reduce their cities to ash. But when the orbital strikes found only empty ruins, Kark's rage knew no bounds. Find their bases. Crush their resistance. The space battle intensified. Hybrid fighters clashed with Xantine squadrons in furious dogfights. Energy beams lanced back and forth as capital ships traded titanic blows. Slowly, inevitably, the sheer numbers of the Xantine fleet began to tell. Kyle watched as more and more red dots winked out on his tactical display. "We can't keep this up forever," Vance said, his face grim. Kyle nodded. "We don't have to." Look. On the main view screen, they watched as Kark's reserve ships began to descend. Millions of Xantine troops were about to make planetfall. But Kyle allowed himself a predatory grin. Everything was going according to plan. The real fight was just beginning. Hours later, Kyle stood before Kark's in the brig of his command ship. The alien admiral glowered silently. "Talk," Kyle demanded. "What's the Empire planning?" Kark spat defiantly. Kyle nodded to Vance, who activated a neural stimulator. Kark's convulsed, alien curses spilling from his lips. "This is nothing," Kyle said coldly. "Start talking, or it gets worse." Kark's resistance crumbled. He spoke of vast armadas being assembled, millions of warships poised to annihilate Earth. Kyle listened, his face hardening. When Kark's finished, Kyle turned to his tech expert. "Can you access their systems?" The specialist nodded. "Their firewalls are good, but I'm better." "Upload this," Kyle said, handing over a data crystal. "Make sure it spreads." As the Xantine ships jumped to light speed, Kyle allowed himself a grim smile. His virus was loose in their systems now. They had to wait. Months passed. Kyle pored over intelligence reports, tracking the virus's spread. When the massive Xantine armadas finally mobilized, he knew the moment had come. Across the galaxy, Xantine ships engaged their hyperdrives en masse. A heartbeat later, space itself seemed to scream. The fabric of space rippled as Kyle's stolen Xantine vessel dropped out of hyperspace. Through the viewport, the alien homeworld of Caranod loomed. A sickly green orb wreathed in orbital defenses. Stealth systems engaged. Vance reported, his fingers dancing across the alien controls. So far, so good. Kyle nodded, studying the tactical display. Dozens of Xantine ships drifted aimlessly, their systems crippled by the virus. He allowed himself a grim smile. "Commence infiltration," he ordered. The ship glided silently past disabled defense platforms. Kyle's tech expert, Dr. Chen, interfaced with Karenad's networks. Lines of alien code scrolled across her screen. "I'm in," she announced, uploading the virus to their orbital grid now. One by one, the planet's defenses winked out. Kyle keyed the comm. "All teams, prepare for planetfall. Hit your targets hard and fast." Stealth dropships streaked towards the surface. Kyle's vessel shuddered as it entered the atmosphere. Through swirling clouds, the sprawling capital came into view, a maze of twisted spires and bioorganic structures. They touched down in a plaza near the Imperial Palace. The moment the hatch opened, plasma fire erupted from entrenched Xantine positions. "Push forward." Kyle bellowed, returning fire with his hybrid rifle. His commandos fanned out, using hover platforms and grappling lines to scale the alien architecture. Explosions blossomed as they struck key installations. Inside the palace, alarms blared. Supreme Overlord Zeus rose from his throne, mandibles clicking in agitation. "My lord," a guard captain hissed, "the humans have breached." An explosion rocked the chamber. Kyle's infiltration team burst through the smoke, weapons blazing. Zeus barely escaped through a hidden passage as his guards were cut down. Kyle cursed, pursuing the fleeing Emperor through winding corridors, but the trail went cold in the labyrinthine depths. Kyle regrouped with his squad, descending into the planet's subterranean research facilities. They fought room by room, overwhelming alien scientists and security forces. In a vast data core, Dr. Chen plugged into the central terminal. "Jackpot," she exclaimed. "I've got coordinates for their key military assets across the Empire." Kyle relayed the intel to the waiting human strike force. Within minutes, stealth bombers began emerging from hyperspace above Xantine worlds. Munitions factories erupted in flames. Shipyards crumbled as fusion warheads found their marks. Centuries of Xantine military might reduce to ash in mere hours. As Kyle's team extracted under heavy fire, reports flooded in of chaos engulfing the Empire. On 100 worlds, oppressed species rose up against their weakened masters. Aboard his command ship, Kyle allowed himself a moment of celebration. "We did it," he breathed. "We brought down an empire." But the victory was short-lived. Alarms shrieked as sensors detected a massive energy spike from Karenad's dark side. "What the hell is that?" Vance demanded. On the tactical display, a colossal weapon powered up, easily dwarfing their entire fleet. Its barrel oriented towards their position, crackling with destructive potential. Kyle's blood ran cold as he realized the daring plan Zeus had in store. With the Empire in ruins, the alien Emperor would see them all burn. "All ships, evasive maneuvers," Kyle shouted. "We need to take out that cannon before." The final stand. Kyle grabbed the nearest comm unit. "All hands, prepare for immediate deployment. We're going in." Within minutes, Kyle stood before a hastily assembled team of his most elite operatives. "Listen up. That thing out there will vaporize our fleet if we don't stop it. We're going to infiltrate and disable it from the inside. Failure is not an option." They boarded sleek insertion pods designed for stealth and speed. As they rocketed towards Karenad's surface, Kyle's grip tightened on his weapon. The planet's defenses, still reeling from the earlier assault, failed to detect their approach. They touched down in a secluded valley, the ground trembling beneath their feet. Kyle signaled, and the team fanned out. They encountered scattered groups of Xantine security forces, clearly disoriented by the chaos engulfing their world. "Take them out quietly," Kyle ordered. His team moved with lethal precision. Plasma daggers flashed in the dim light as they neutralized alien patrols, leaving a trail of lifeless Xantine bodies in their wake. As they neared the superweapon's location, Kyle called in their stealth bombers. The sky lit up as precision-guided munitions rained down on the facility's outer defenses. When the smoke cleared, a gaping hole stood where impenetrable alien alloys had been moments before. Kyle led the charge into the smoldering breach. The air inside the complex was thick with acrid smoke. Emergency lights cast an eerie red glow through the corridors. Automated defense turrets swiveled towards the intruders, unleashing a barrage of energy bolts. "Cover!" Kyle shouted, diving behind a twisted bulkhead. His team returned fire, their hybrid weapons punching through the facility's internal defenses. They pushed deeper into the complex, fighting through waves of security drones and force fields. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the facility. Kyle cursed under his breath. "They've detected us. Move faster." They sprinted through winding corridors, the sound of heavy footfalls echoing behind them. Kyle risked a glance back, his eyes widening as he saw the hulking forms of the Emperor's royal guards in pursuit. "Contact rear," he yelled. The narrow access corridor erupted in chaos. Plasma bolts sizzled past Kyle's head as his team exchanged fire with the elite Xantine troops. The air filled with the screams of the wounded and dying. Kyle found himself face to face with a towering Praetorian guard. The alien's augmented armor gleamed as it swung a massive energy mace. Kyle ducked under the blow, feeling the heat of the weapon as it passed inches from his skull. He lashed out with a flurry of strikes, targeting weak points in the guard's defenses. The melee was brutal and bloody. Kyle's enhanced reflexes were pushed to their limit as he battled the hulking alien juggernauts. His armor was scorched and dented, but he pressed on. Finally, they breached the main control room. Kyle's tech specialists immediately set to work, their fingers flying over alien consoles. "We're in," one of them called out, "uploading the virus now." But their victory was short-lived. A blast door at the far end of the chamber slid open, revealing a heavily fortified inner sanctum. Kyle caught a glimpse of Xantine scientific advisors frantically working at their stations. "They're overriding our hack," a tech specialist shouted. "They're going to force a manual detonation." Kyle's mind raced. There was only one option left. He pulled a handful of shake charges from his belt. "Everyone out now," he ordered. As his team retreated, Kyle planted the explosives at key structural points around the chamber. He activated the detonators, then turned to follow his squad. The complex shook as the charges went off in sequence. Kyle staggered as the floor buckled beneath him. He heard the screams of the Xantine advisors as their inner sanctum collapsed. Kyle fought to maintain his balance as the entire facility began to implode around him. Debris rained down, threatening to crush him at any moment. With every ounce of strength he had left, he maneuvered through the collapsing structure, preventing the weapon's firing mechanisms from engaging in those final, crucial moments. Outside, Kyle's remaining forces scrambled to their stealth bombers. As they lifted off the ground, where the superweapon had stood caved in on itself, leaving nothing but a massive crater, weapon neutralized, came the confirmation over the comms. "All units, prepare for slipstream jump." As Carronade receded behind them, Kyle allowed himself a moment of relief. They had done it. The Xantine Empire's final risky move had failed. The fleet engaged their slipstream drives, leaving behind a galaxy forever changed by humanity's defiance. Rebuilding Earth. The slipstream drives disengaged, and Earth loomed large in the viewports. Kyle felt a surge of emotion as he gazed upon the blue-green orb. They were home. But as they descended through the atmosphere, the scars of the Xantine invasion became apparent. Vast seas of cities lay in ruins, smoke still rising from smoldering wreckage. The comm channels crackled with reports of civil unrest and governmental collapse. Kyle's eyes hardened as he surveyed the chaos. He turned to Vance, his voice low. "We need to stabilize this situation. Fast." In the weeks that followed, Kyle and his team worked tirelessly. They met with world leaders, coordinated relief efforts, and quelled violent uprisings. The work was grueling, but slowly, Order began to emerge from the chaos. At a summit of remaining global powers, Kyle stood before a sea of haggard faces. "We can't afford to be divided anymore," he declared. "The Xantine threat may be neutralized, but who knows what else is out there." His words struck a chord. Over the next months, a new unified world government took shape. When the dust settled, Kyle found himself thrust into a role he never anticipated: Supreme Commander of the newly formed Earth Defense Corps. He wasted no time. In a secured facility deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, Kyle pored over captured Xantine tech with Dr. Chen and a team of Earth's brightest minds. "We need to understand every circuit, every line of code," Kyle instructed. "Humanity's survival depends on it." Progress was rapid. Within years, Earth's technological capabilities advanced by centuries. Kyle watched with pride as the first human-built hyperdrive engines roared to life in a test chamber. In orbit, massive shipyards took shape. Kyle toured the facilities, marveling at the sleek warships under construction. "How long until the fleet is combat-ready?" he asked the project lead. 6 months, sir, maybe less." Kyle nodded, his eyes fixed on the stars. Out there, the remnants of the Xantine Empire still posed a threat. He intended to neutralize it. A new era. Months later, Kyle stood on the bridge of the EDS Defiant, Earth's first true battle cruiser. The ship dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of former Xantine territory. Long-range sensors immediately detected weapons fire. "Multiple engagements detected," the tactical officer reported. "Looks like the warlords are fighting amongst themselves." Kyle's eyes narrowed. "Perfect. Prep strike teams for surgical incursions. We'll hit them while they're distracted." The Defiant stealth systems engaged as they approached their first target, a Xantine supply depot. Kyle led the boarding party himself, his hybrid rifle at the ready. They encountered minimal resistance. The alien guards were caught completely off guard by the human assault. Within minutes, the depot was secured. "Download everything," Kyle ordered. "I want their entire database stripped clean." Similar raids followed. The EDC fleet struck like ghosts, appearing and disappearing before the Xantine remnants could mount an effective defense. On the ice world of Kok, Kyle and his Marines battled through howling blizzards. Visibility was near zero as they approached a fortress carved into a glacier. Inside, they discovered stockpiles of horrific bioweapons. "Contain and secure it all," Kyle commanded. "We can't let this fall into the wrong hands." The campaign continued. Over Renoff, Kyle watched from the Defiance Bridge as EDC troopers engaged Xantine pirates in the planet's rings. Plasma bolts crisscrossed the void as they fought to dismantle a stolen shipyard. On Jellica, Kyle personally led the assault on the volcanic mines. The air shimmered with heat as they pushed through the alien defenders. Antimatter production facilities were reduced to slag under concentrated bombardment. Back in the Sol system, Kyle oversaw the construction of massive defense platforms. He walked the decks of one such station, inspecting rows of rail guns and plasma cannons. "No one gets through without our say-so," he told the station commander. The inevitable retaliation came sooner than expected. Alarms blared throughout Sol as a cobbled-together Xantine armada punched through the outer defensive lines. Kyle's voice was steady as he issued orders from his command center on Luna. "Spring the trap." The Xantine ships surged forward, only to find themselves caught in a deadly crossfire. Kyle's fleet emerged from hidden positions, hammering the enemy from all sides. The space around Earth lit up with the pyres of dying alien vessels. When it was over, Kyle stood face to face with the defeated Xantine warlords aboard the Defiant. Their mandibles clicked in barely contained rage as he laid out his terms. "You will surrender all remaining assets and intel," Kyle stated flatly. "Failure to comply will result in your complete annihilation. Am I understood?" The aliens hissed their assent as they were led away. Kyle turned his gaze to the stars once more. The Xantine threat was contained, but he knew humanity's trials were nowhere near the end.